Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to season 2 of Conversations in Pop Culture, where I have with me for the fourth time and the first time live, Gary J. So, welcome back to the show, I guess, is how we should
Four
call it.
Horsemen. Yeah.
Fortune 4. I don't know any other fours in wrestling, but clearly there has to be some. So, four times. Four times. So welcome back.
What's going on, man?
Nothing much. Nothing much. I am just excited. This is technically, I think, my fourth interview of the week, which is really ironic because speaking about four times with everything. And for those who don't know, this entire project sort of started because of you. You were the first guest back in what was known as Conversations with Wrestlers, that then became Conversations in Pop Culture a week later, due to COVID and everything that was going on. Because prior to that, I was doing them pre-recorded for my other podcast, Pop Anime Comics Lounge, which is on hiatus right now. But obviously, with COVID and all that stuff, I decided to start doing stuff live and a little bit more pre-recorded sometimes. So obviously, everybody has Gary J to thank for that, for this all happening. So you could all thank him, and you could all go buy his merch.
Yeah, woohoo! Buy it all.
So yeah, so that I just wanted to mention that because I think it is super important to actually talk about that. You're sort of the first person that started all this, as I was saying, and we're going to talk about a bunch of new stuff. But I think the best place to start is talking about St. Louis because a lot's going on with St. Louis. A lot was supposed to happen in 2021. Obviously, you guys sort of moved out of Spalding Hall. Yeah, I think you're going to be in a new location, and obviously, what has that been like with the delays and the safety issues and making sure that, Matt Jackson obviously sort of had to rewrite a bunch of stuff, and then that got canceled because COVID has been very difficult. And then things obviously change with everything going on in that promotion. And I don't think you guys are far from done. It's just that until things sort of normalize.
No, yeah, absolutely. Honestly, like I tell everybody when they ask about it, it's just a very slow, patient waiting game. Don't worry, it'll be worth it. But obviously, COVID hit. We lost our building. We're scrambling, but we're not really scrambling now. We're just kind of patiently waiting. We've got some stuff set up with buildings. We've got meetings, and we're doing our part just behind the scenes. And we don't feel it's necessary to let people know about every step we make because when we return, they'll know about it.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that is very relevant where I think it is a big waiting game with COVID and everything that's going on, where it is better to be safe than sorry. Things are constantly changing. Obviously, this vaccination is starting to roll out, but it's not going as fast as everybody thinks it was going to go, and it is going to take time. And also, I think it's the idea that you have to sort of dip your toe in the water first before you jump into the pool because God forbid, we all jump into the pool and then it's sort of not gone. I think it's going to be a bigger problem in the long run. So I think that taking it nice and slow is the approach.
No, absolutely. And it gives us time to regroup and game plan because obviously what we were going to do last year or beginning of this year isn't going to work. We're going to have to kind of start fresh or start from scratch. So when we come back, it'll be worth it. And it's just a waiting game. That's the easiest way to put it. All the ducks are in a row. We're just waiting for the day to actually do it.
And obviously, there's some stuff going sort of on with St. Louis a little bit. And it's been a little bit on Twitter too, where obviously WrestleMania week is coming up. IWTV has 12 shows that are taking place. And you, I think, are booked on a few shows already. And somebody's been very pesty and issued you a challenge. And you had to take appropriate actions and block young Billy Stark. So that's going on. What happened with that entire incident? That Billy was being very rude to her elder.
I don't know if it's about being rude to your elder, but I've got enough heat and enough shit on my conscience.
We don't want to murder. We don't want to murder on your hands.
I just feel it's the appropriate thing to politely decline. She's got a bright future. She'll be signed and be making a lot of money by the time she's 19 or 20. There's no need. I give her credit for swinging for the fences, but there's just no need.
And obviously, she's very persistent, so you had to take the appropriate action to block her.
No, yeah, I mean, I can't look at that, bullshit garbage in my feed every day. So,
Because she would consistently push for
well,
this
yeah,
challenge, and she doesn't understand the word no, and obviously she's got a lot of fire in her, so it had to be addressed because we
well, I mean,
can't have you murdering people.
I can't blame him for being passionate. I mean, we're all here because we're passionate, but I just feel she can be passionate about something else. Like, it's probably not the thing to be passionate about. So,
She could go
yeah,
face
got to do
Starboy.
what you got to do.
She
Exactly.
could
Have a
go
good match there.
So obviously that has to be tabled, and we need to deal with that. And obviously, hopefully, she'll be getting the message loud and clear from this perspective. So that's not going to happen at WrestleMania week leading up. Clearly, and
Nope.
obviously, you don't want a piece of that. And God forbid, we don't want a murder of a young, bright future talent that could possibly be signed to an AEW or WWE if I or anybody else has anything to do with it. So we're just going to table that. And I did want to mention that because it is a big deal, and obviously you don't play around on Twitter.
Nope. I mean, why end your career before you even started? So, I mean, I'm saving her.
That's the precise attitude. Sometimes, as Triple H said to, Daniel Bryan, I was trying to save you, Daniel. I was trying to save you because I knew how this was going to
Exactly.
end. And now I was saving your career this entire time. So obviously that's exactly what you're doing, the school of Triple H.
Exactly. Me and Paul talk every day.
So having tabled all of that, the last time we spoke, we sort of ended, I guess, in September. And there's been a few things that have happened, and we're going to be talking about ICW in a second here. But I do want to talk a little bit about IW Mid South as well, because you had some interesting matches that took place. And one of the matches I want to talk about that I think I would like to see a rematch with was against Chris Dickinson.
Oh, the Dirty Daddy. Yeah, I always like getting in there and fighting Chris. He's a bad motherfucker. He's legit too. So like, he's the man.
So what was that like being in the ring with Chris Dickinson? Because that guy's been around everywhere. He's getting bigger and bigger every single match he does. He's been to Japan, and he also arguably has the second best wind. The greatest second best wind in a match where he could be legitimately kick the shit out of him, and then he comes back and he's like a truck running straight through you for like the last 5 minutes of a match. And obviously that match was a real banger.
It was the second time we've actually got in squared circle. The first time was the St. Louis Anarchy, which I think I've touched on before. It was cool. Like, I always like to get in there with people that are, considered the best in the world and see how or where I measure. And I consider myself one of the best. So, like, I think I measure pretty well.
Yeah, and also I think it's kind of nice because the Dirty Daddy I don't think comes much to the Midwest. He's very much known for being on the East Coast and being in Beyond and being in sort of the New England area and maybe a little bit New York as well and Jersey. And so obviously when he's coming to the Mid South, and I think he's starting to travel a lot more outside of I guess what is his home territory, it's kind of a cool
Yeah.
thing when you get that new talent in there, you get that fresh blood in there. Not to say that, the Midwest, obviously the Midwest is a wrestling hub, but it is nice to have those styles and have stars from, a company like Beyond come in or a company like, sometimes obviously wrestles for GCW and a few other promotions on the East Coast. So what is that like? Because he's not the only one as well, but he's a really good example of somebody coming into territory. So what is that like for you? Being in the Midwest and being in that territory, and you travel too a lot, but to have somebody sort of come into your territory versus you going into theirs.
I think it's great. It's kind of like having home field advantage. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I look at it. Like, when I go to the East Coast, I'm in their territory. When they come to Midwest area, they're in my territory.
Yeah. I think that's a really good way to put it. Is that it is home field advantage. And speaking about IW, Mid-South. Obviously, there's a few other matches. Jay Chris. I think we can all be adults here. Obviously, you had some title matches with him, and then also you and Aaron Williams teamed up. And I know it's unsigned and don't care as well. And the saying is that who's left on the indies, right? But every time
Yeah,
somebody gets
exactly.
signed to the big guys, somebody always is stepping up and is always taking somebody's place, and there's always new stars that are born. And obviously, you faced him and Larry D, as well as the Mason Dixon line, which is Devon Dixon and Solias Mason, as well in a tag match. So, what was those matches like? Because it is this signed and don't care, and you're putting on great matches. And I think you're proving that people are
Uh,
stepping up all the time.
Basically, like, long story short, like, the reason me and Aaron are a team or a group or friends or anything in real life and wrestling is just respect. And we have a lot of the same wrestling philosophies, and like being around each other for so long, for years, we just realized that we have a lot in common when it comes to wrestling and the way we view things. So we decided just to, we hashtagged like one day, like unsigned don't care, because I think we just fought each other and took a picture, which is whatever. But then I realized, like, let's just see what we can do with this and have fun with it. And I don't know if it's really caught fire, but we're just kind of plugging away at it. And like, the Mason Dixon match was our first actual tag match together. We've only tagged like 3 or 4 times. Like, we're not this like notable tag team that tags all the time. Like, we're still kind of getting our feet wet when it comes to tagging together.
And so, what is that like, though? Because obviously, the two of you have great chemistry, and it just sort of gels and works. And I think it goes beyond just your styles. Also, this idea of both of you are a little bit, older in the business, and you're not green, and so you both have real experience as single wrestlers and accomplishing things, as well as I think fans respect you in many ways. And then on top of that, it's also the philosophy that the two of you have where you're like, hey, we don't really care that we're signed. It doesn't matter to us. We just want to wrestle and put on great matches and do cool shit in the ring. And actually,
Pretty
like,
much. I mean, I don't live and die by the fact that, Vince McMahon's not going to email me or send me fucking messenger mail. You know what I mean? Like, I've said it before, like, obviously making money is important. You got to feed myself and keep the lights on, keep a roof over my head. But you can do that just being on the indies. You just got to be smart about it and how you play your game. Like, I don't live and die by a fucking piece of paper. Like, the piece of paper that I live and die by, like, you can't spend fucking clout. You can't put clout in your gas tank. Like, I'm about like doing the miles and the territories, as we say, like put my time in. I don't expect to go straight to the top, and I've been wrestling fucking 19 years.
so to even talk about that, because I think this is something that a lot of young guys don't get, and even people 5 years in, where it's this idea that you have to be in WWE, you have to be signed, because there are people who make a really good living and have a lot of freedom and do really well as wrestlers and do this and enjoy it without ever being in WWE or ever being signed to a major promotion. And that, that's not what it's all about in many ways. And that, I feel like it's such a bad stigma to be on the indies. And I think that's changing. But I think
Exactly.
so what do you think is attributing to like that change in the stigma? Because that's something that I find where I got into the independent scene in wrestling and being a fan of it about 3 years ago. And before that, I only knew of Impact, which was sort of an independent scene. And obviously,
My show.
my viewing has changed.
Yeah. Basically, I think a lot of it has to do with just the guys themselves. Like guys like me and Aaron, because they're out there. Me and Aaron aren't the only two that don't care about being signed. Like there's other people out there. We just thought it would be fun and give us a laugh if we just said, fuck it, let's just start speaking our minds and like see what happens. I mean, it's kind of like us turned up like 1,000%, as people say, that's your best work is when you're you. Like there's no faking there. That's who we are. So like I think that's changed because like people see that like you can make some money on the indies, you just gotta put your time in. And obviously some don't want to put their time in. They think they're gonna go straight to the top. But usually that ends horribly. When you stop caring is when you start doing your best work in a way.
Yeah, I think that that is very true, and I think it's true across a lot of professions. Is that when you just say "fuck it" and you go on what would I and most likely be going to be going on the "fuck you" tour sooner rather than later. It's going to be one of those things where I just don't care. Every time I don't care about something, I tend to do very well on it, and I think that that's something that I think people don't understand. But it also not caring to the point where you're showing up an hour late, but saying, hey, look, I'm going to wrestle and cut whatever promo I want to cut. And if I want to be the heel in the match, I'm just going to be it. I'm going to cross the line, but I'm not crossing the line outside of what's permitted in the wrestling ring. I think that's when best work comes out, when people know where to play in the sandbox, but they take it to a new level to some degree, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and it really helps because unfortunately, you go to a lot of these shows and you ask the promoter, "What do you want?" and you get, "Oh, do whatever you want." And I don't really like that answer. I'd rather have a promoter going, "This is kind of my idea. You do what you want with it." I'd rather have an outline because honestly, any promoter with a brain will have an outline of what they want because they know what they're doing. Unfortunately, there's a lot of promoters. I'm not trying to shit on anybody, but don't know what the fuck they're doing. So they're just, "I do whatever you want." So if I want to go out there and do absolutely nothing and you're going to pay me, you're going to allow that. Come on.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like, if you're writing a novel and you don't have an idea where it's supposed to go, the beginning, the middle, the end, your book's probably not going to do well because it's just one of those things, and I think that that's a problem and I think it's a problem also even how to pace a show. I went to a show, the last show I went to, and look, there were certain matches that match one, two, and three were great, but then match four sort of killed the buzz. And then the starting match after the intermission was a nightmare, and there was no pacing in it. And it wasn't even the match itself; it was like the placement of it, and like it shows a failure in how the show was conceived. And I think that that's a big problem. Is that, and look, it's a difference if you're trying something new, but at the same time, you also need to know how to. If you got 9 matches on the card, you need to know where to put them as well. And I think a
No,
lot of promoters
absolutely.
don't know what they're doing. So I think it's a
Nope.
massive problem in wrestling.
Yep. Pacing a show and then realizing, like, a lot of people need to realize not every match needs to go 15 or 20 minutes. Not every match needs to be a high five, a hug, and a handshake because it was their fucking WrestleMania. Like, it's okay to have a good heel and a good baby face. It's okay to, like, have a 6-minute match, but it'd be really good. Like, those things happen on good shows.
Yeah, and I also think that that understanding that if you have a really good heel that gets everybody pissed off in the crowd and pushes everybody and gets everybody angry and booing them, you don't need to keep that energy indefinitely going. You can use that energy to then have a really good just rivalry between two baby faces right afterwards, and that energy is also going to carry over. But if you have a 15-minute booing of a heel and then you have two baby faces going at it, doesn't work that way. And I think that's an issue. And I also think like promoters sometimes want to get the most mileage out of talent. And I think it's just the idea is that I would rather have an hour-long show that's really good wrestling and really really hyped up. And I've been to an hour show and it was great. Than be be at a 2 hour show that has average matches.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I think the problem is like we're kind of getting away from it now. But for a while, it was just, let's put the top indie guys against the top indie guys. That'll be a main events. You're not building anybody. You're not cultivating any local talent that could be at places. You're too busy promoting fucking guy that's on TV versus guy that's on TV. Who gives a shit? Like, they're not there every month, and if they are, they're just honestly there for the payday half the time. Like, you got to cultivate talent and like build people.
And to even talk about that, because a bunch of indie guys have just been signed to WWE, some have gone to AEW. Obviously, when that happens, a vacuum fills up. And, I'll give an example. Christian Casanova, who is the Limitless champion right now, just got signed to WWE. And I'm interviewing Ava Everett tomorrow, which is going to be a fun interview. And she's dealing with Limitless, and she's great. And I think her boyfriend's in WWE, Anthony Green or AG or August
Yeah.
Gray. Might have spoiled something. I think they're still together, so don't quote me on that. But the idea is that when AG left, a bunch of wrestlers filled up the spot on season 2. Christian Casanova was one of those fillers where he rose up, and now he's leaving. And when I was speaking to Alec Price, a bunch of guys are now going to be stepping up again. So like Alec Price, you can make the argument that a Kennedy Copeland, a Delmy Exo, and Ashley Vox, a Davienne, Ava, Basic Becca, those people are now stepping up who are indie talent, who've been in the business for 3 years, and I feel like Limitless is a great example. They know how to build up talent. You got Love Doug.
Yep.
I am invested in Love Doug. Like, I am genuinely invested in the guy who has lost every single match on Limitless's 2 seasons and now 3 seasons, and I am invested in his story. Like, I am genuinely...
Because they've made you care.
I care now.
That's the key. Exactly.
And he had a match at Camp Love Frog, which is Camp Leapfrog, and when he beat Becca, I gave a shit. And it was amazing. I'm so happy for him, and I felt emotion. And I think that's something that some companies know how to do and others don't, because those people aren't making a payday in Limitless.
No, that's the thing. Like, storytelling in wrestling, sometimes it's very hard to find. It's just the way it is. I get it. Like, some people don't like it, but at the end of the day, like, I think that's one of the best things about what we do is storytelling.
Yes, I know that you got beef with this person, and you might have enjoyed what happened to them, I think, last week. But obviously, you and Warhorse have had some wars. No pun intended. And there's a story there, though, between the two of you and people who know every single match. The wars in St. Louis, the wars with the turnbuckle situation where his entire mouth thinking about it. The fact that at WrestleMania week, in Jersey, he put the turnbuckle in your mouth and threw you over like you did. There's a real story there. There's real emotion there for everybody who knows that history, and the fact that the two of you have gone at it so much and that it's just been raised up and the bar keeps going up, you feel like, oh, snap, I don't know who's going to win in this circumstance. And so I think that that's a great example where I care now to say, how are they going to raise the bar, and B, who's coming out on top? And then there's going to be another one that comes out, and then there's another one. And how much further can this go between these two wrestlers? And I think that's something that some companies don't do well. And I think it's a real problem.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's an example with you.
As a performer and someone who markets myself and has to promote myself, and I'm do it yourself. Like, if people don't care about me, what's the point of me being around? You know what I mean? Like, you have to make people care and invest in you, or worry about you, or hate you, depending on what your role is. Like, they're not going to buy your merch or like give a shit about you, or like go out of their way to watch your matches if they're just not invested in you.
Yeah, and I'll even give another position. I think St. Louis, and correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they have a ranking system for one of their titles, or was it might have been another company in that area? But one of the companies you work for had a ranking system, and that, like, if you beat the third person and you're the fourth person, the ranks switch, and you had a match with Craig Mitchell. I think I'm not sure. Maybe it was St. Louis, maybe it was another company. Maybe it was it wasn't St. Louis. It was wow. The name is slipping my mind here, but it was for their title. It was Craig Mitchell, the one where you guys like were wrestling, and like I think he threw you down the stairs during that match.
Oh, that was that mixtape. That was like a whole bunch of IWTV places.
It was
like,
Glory.
The ranking system was for the ranking system was for the IWTV title.
Right. So
it was in Chicago.
Yeah. So obviously it's one of these mixtapes, IWTV, and so now because you're ranked at a certain level, Craig Mitchell is ranked at a certain level, and obviously we're figuring out who's the number one contender, who's in line next, and who's moving up and who's moving down out of the title picture. Because I'm interested in who the title holder is, I'm interested in you. I actually now am paying more attention because I'm like, oh, wait, we're now determining, almost like a football playoff game, who's getting the next shot. And I think that that's something that
Exactly.
also is storytelling, where you're not wrestling Craig Mitchell every day, but it's that this is actually meaningful now, and it actually matters, and somebody's moving in and out of those positions, and now we actually have a placement entire position. So obviously, I think that's super helpful too, because we have a very loose story with that, but we do have consequences for matches, and I think that's something that
Yep.
wrestling needs, and I think good promotions
Yeah.
understand that.
Oh, absolutely. It's like weekly TV. Like your show's like weekly TV. Okay, we'll see you next month. But if you don't give them anything they want to see, why are they gonna come back? A cliffhanger, a good ending, uh, a story that could lead into next month, or promos that could lead into next month. Like at the end of the day, like it's a live action comic book. You know what I mean? Like you want to see what happens.
Yeah, and because there's that, and I'm invested, it makes me now pay attention, and especially this is my first time watching some of this stuff because obviously I came into St. Louis and into a lot of these shows. I think back either 2017 or 2018 at this point, and I don't remember the exact date, but obviously I fell in love with this stuff, and I'm like, oh man, I need to sort of go back and figure out what's going on, but it's also easy to jump in on what's going on with all this stuff. So obviously
Yep.
that's cool.
Because nothing's convoluted. Like you can turn it on and then watch it and go, oh, okay, this guy is that guy, and like you can understand what's going on. It's not convoluted. It doesn't go over your head, and that's the point. I feel there's other things in wrestling that go right over the fan's head because it's way too convoluted. Like you just got to keep it very easy and simple when it comes to anything story related because people can relate to it.
Yeah, I mean, I was speaking to a comic book guy, and his story, and not to go into it, is the first three issues. You don't know really what the hell's going on, except that people are chasing other people. And then in issue four, you find out it's about a girl, and everything starts making sense. And that's not a complicated story as far as
Nope.
when you actually figure out what's going on a little bit in the comic book. And I think that's sort of with wrestling, where you can have a little complexity in there, but it also has to be about a particular thing, and it has to clearly be about something that everybody can relate to. So I think also, and look, sometimes just people just don't like each other, and that's the issue. Is that and that works beautifully in many ways. Or it's about chasing a title that somebody got cheated out of when that title was up for its first time in a tournament, and then that's been the chase the entire time, and everybody can get behind that, especially for months. I mean, we go back to Daniel Bryan, we're making that joke. Obviously, when you have that 6 month chase, it is pretty clear that entire storyline was about an underdog chasing a title that he deserved to run with, and that it's a pretty
Oh, yeah.
simple story when you go down that road with difficult complexities and overcoming hurdles as the ultimate underdog. And then when you get that victory, and even during that WrestleMania show, you get that sweet victory of what's going on with it, and then the hurdles just keep coming and coming, and he keeps rising above and above and above. And it's just that's a very simple story in wrestling.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's so easy to follow. Like, it's it's good to have a bad guy, and it's good to have a good guy. And like, if you can think of a storyline between them, usually that's gonna make people interested. It's not that hard.
A lot of people and a lot of companies should just hire comic writers to do this. Imagine Scott Snyder running and writing for WWE. Just throw that one out there. For those who don't know, and I know you're a Batman fan, so I figured I'd throw that one out there for you.
Yeah, I mean, the WWE writing system, I have no clue. Other than I know Daniel Bryan writes SmackDown, so I guess SmackDown's been better.
Yeah, that might be true. That might not be. I can neither confirm nor deny. I'll leave it at that. But
Yeah.
even to get beyond story, and I do want to talk about it because in this interview we just talk and we don't fight in a pit. Um, Obviously, one of the things that you put out before we did, or right after we did the third interview together, is that you said you wanted to be in ICW. You put out a post on it, your bucket list, and
Yeah.
obviously that happened. And so, how did that all come about? ICW, obviously, John Wayne Murdoch was the Wrestler of the Year for 2020. That's sort of a big deal. ICW. They didn't invent deathmatch wrestling. But I definitely think they helped to save it and make it relevant. And I think it was a very happy accident for them in many ways. And so, how did you get brought into that? Because it's a I would imagine it's very interesting. Because did they just call you up? Did you express interest? Like, how did that all happen? Because it was kind of cool when you show up for Pit Fighter.
Basically, I'd expressed interest a little bit ago, and like I'd always kind of been in contact with them, and like they had a list of people that like I was like bottom of the list. There's a lot of guys that we want to bring in, and you're one of them. Just it might be a while, and obviously like I knew people there, so I'd ask them and I talked to them. John Wayne being one of them. Like I'd see him all the time in Indiana, and we'd bullshit about it and talk. So then I just kind of got a call one Monday afternoon, and they were like, "Can you be in Jersey on Saturday?" Because Justin Kyle, who's supposed to be in the pit against Dom Gravini, can't make it now. I'm like, "Yep, I'm there." So that's pretty much the call I was waiting for. So of course I'm going to take advantage of it, and that's kind of how that happened.
And so obviously, for those who don't know, Dom Granini. Wow, I can't speak today. Guarini. I think I got it right on the fourth time there. He's a big guy. He's a beast. And then obviously, Violence is Forever. I don't know if that's still their name. They might have changed it at this point, but obviously, big tag team guy. Guy knows how to wrestle. He's wrestled in a bunch of unsanctioned type matches, and he's a legit, hard hitting guy and understands how to wrestle death match. And so obviously the pit in of itself is also a unique deathmatch environment. So what was that all like? Because obviously Dom Granini, he knows what he's doing, and he's been around the block a bunch of times. He knows how to use weapons. You know how to use weapons. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. And then you're also in the pit, which has different rules than other things. And I don't think there's anything like the pit in other promotions. So it is so different than anything else out there. So what was that all like? Because it was sort of cool.
It's definitely unique. Like when I got there, obviously the first thing I did was kind of just step in the pit and like look around. You're in a barn in New Jersey, so like you're like, this is interesting. Wrestling in 2021, am I right? But basically, like the cool thing about like me or Dom is we're not necessarily gonna do deathmatch stuff. Like we're actually gonna go in there and fist fight, and like that's what makes us a little unique when it comes to like working for ICW, which is considered a deathmatch based company, but they have a lot of guys that can go in there and mix it up and actually fight and wrestle and not have to use deathmatch weapons. So that's what I was there to do. And like, I feel that's kind of my niche there is like the crazy barroom brawl guy that like doesn't need weapons, but they're there occasionally if he needs them.
Yeah, and I think that match is, now that you bring that up, that match was interesting because it wasn't necessarily death match per se. I felt like it was sort of a hardcore match, but also it could have gone death match, and it wasn't as intense and crazy as some of the other stuff on that card. And it was sort of a breather to some degree because I think it was early on in the card as well. And so it was kind of nice because it was like a warm up a little bit, because this is how I feel about deathmatch wrestling. I like it. Violence for some people and pain for some people is therapy. And obviously, I think a lot of people really enjoy it because it's like, what can you do with a weapon? And how far can you go? But also, this was sort of a hardcore thing. And, obviously, talk about pacing. If you go and break 15 panes of glass and set a piece of glass on fire in the first match, how much more can you raise the bar? And it is important, I think, to understand that. Akira, one of the shows obviously jumps off almost like a house / thing in Jersey with light tubes on, and I think he was like the second match to the last one or the third match to the last one. If he did that in the first match, it would throw off the entire card because that's a big spot. And so I think that you really accomplished what you needed to accomplish, went hardcore enough, but didn't outshine somebody, especially being early on in the card. If that makes any sense.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm A-okay with going there and just getting in a fist fight and get punched in the face. Like I can show my skill and what I do in that,
And so obviously being in that promotion, it's kind of cool. I think it's also cool that you're in Jersey. Obviously you're in a barn. Was Chris Levin the ref in that, or was it somebody else?
Um, I think it was. Yeah, I think he was the only one there that night.
Because I love Chris, and I think Chris is one of the best refs. And also, the pit is very different because I think you can get pins in the pit, you can get TKOs in the pit, because ICW volume, whatever, is very different than what they do in the pit. And also, it's the
Yeah,
mantra of, in the pit we just fight. And I think that
yeah,
that is such a brilliant branding tactic, meaning that this is a fight. I don't view Pit Fighter as a wrestling match. I view it as a fight with wrestling
exactly.
rules.
That's what I view most of mine like that, anyways.
And so obviously I think this is built for you in many ways. So it's a very cool thing. And then obviously when we go into Pit Fighter 6, Pit changed. It was more like a steel cage square. And you're down
Yeah,
in Florida, and Tony Deppen. And for those who don't know, Tony Deppen is an amazing wrestler. He doesn't need weapons. And he was in the Ring of Honor Pure tournament, I think a few weeks before, or maybe even a week before, even like 4 days before, now that I think about it. I'm not exactly sure when, so nobody quote me, but what was that like, getting to face somebody who can pure wrestle, do death match, do a 2-hour Iron Man match, and now you have weapons at your disposal in a steel cage type pit situation
uh,
in Florida?
I prefer the Florida pit than the regular pit. I really like just the steel cage setup, like what they had. Like it was unique and different, and like I don't know, I think I like that one better. So like overall, I just thought it was interesting considering Devin's been working for a long time, and I've been at this forever. Like this is the first time we've ever been in a fight. Like this is the first time we've ever been in the ring together.
That's crazy. That's crazy. How is that even possible? Like, I don't understand how that's possible. How your two paths didn't cross, because you've been at it for 19 years. He's been at it for at least 10, from my understanding, at least, right?
Yeah,
At
he's been at it a
best.
while.
So how is it
Uh,
that the two of you never crossed? Because obviously you went up to Beyond, and I know he was in Beyond, and obviously that's just shocking to me.
I don't know. It's just one of those things that just never happened. We ran almost in the same circles or around the same circles, but it just never happened. So that was like really cool. The fact that like obviously my second appearance at Pit Fighter was against Tony Deppen. So like I knew I'd get to go in there and actually like show people, oh, I can still wrestle if I have to. But then obviously it turns into a fight.
And so obviously I was viewing it on IWTV. I wasn't there, but I saw a bunch of Twitter stuff going on, and obviously people were very excited to see you. People were very excited to see Tony Deppen, and it was very much like two crowd favorites going at it in a very cool way, where people love to hate Tony Deppen. And I think Tony Deppen, curses off the fans, and people cheer for him still, which is awesome. And people still like you, and I just get the music, and I
Yeah.
think everybody knows your music. So it was cool, because I don't know, with ICW, I don't feel like there's any heels in ICW, minus anytime 440 shows up. Beyond
Yeah.
them, I don't find there's any heels. I just find that it's we just want to see people fight, whether it's ICW regular or ICW the pit. And so what was that like? Because I would imagine the crowd was sort of cheering for both of you in a cool way. And so it's weird, because ICW doesn't have stories, but I feel like everybody's a face in that company, and it's just, what can we do in a ring or in a pit or with what?
Kind of. Yeah, I mean, to me, I kind of let the crowd dictate who they want to cheer and who they want to boo. Of course, they're going to boo people and they're going to cheer people, but like for me, it was cool because it was kind of a homecoming. Because I used to be down in Florida all the time for FIP, so like I know the Florida circles and like it'd been forever. So that was kind of like a small homecoming, like finally getting to go back.
So yeah, and obviously Florida is a sort of cool place. Obviously, COVID, with everything that's going on in Florida, is one of those states that's very open about it. And I think Florida has sort of figured out a way how to deal with COVID. And there's a reason why a lot of stuff with wrestling is down in Florida right now, and there's going to be a bunch more stuff going on with wrestling down in Florida. And so that's sort of cool. So, and obviously Florida is warmer out there, and obviously the pit was inside. And then we're going to talk about what happened after the show later on. So what was that like, knowing that you also, after this match, because I think Deppen beat you, I think it was like, what, a knockout?
Yeah, he kept throwing my head into the bar of the cage.
So, and then what was that like, knowing that you had another match after that in a few hours? All
Um,
that double duty.
I was already mentally prepared. I mean, I knew it would just be a very physically taxing day. Like that's all. Like I'm kind of used to it at this point. I knew it would just be rough, and it would be a whole different beast because it was me and Justin Kyle in
Let's
the
let's let's talk
chains.
about that.
Justin Kyle isn't a catch as catch can wrestler like Tony Deppen. Justin Kyle is just a fucking monster that wants to fight people.
Yes, Justin Kyle is a big guy.
Yeah,
And so obviously, and I think this was what, your second or third match with Justin Kyle, from my understanding, collectively.
it was our second. I had one of his first matches back in Mid South. Like I don't know how long ago, maybe a year ago, because he's relatively new in the business.
He has an MMA background, from my understanding.
Yeah,
And so he's not new necessarily to athleticism or fighting or
just
wrestling,
professional wrestling.
professional wrestling. And so now
Yeah,
you and Justin Kyle are going at it. So before we even get into that, obviously there's the chains. So ICW rebranded in 2020 essentially, and they have chains in their ring. And
yep.
so
Those are the ropes. There's no ropes. It's just chains.
so I'll tell you what because Chris Levin does a lot of work for ICW, and what he was saying is that the first time he stepped into the chains, and he said it on this show, is that he almost fell out of the ring because it is
Yeah,
different.
it's you got to be careful getting to the chains. If you watch my match with Justin Kyle, when he gets his entrance and he's doing his thing in front of hard cam, he about falls on his face because he fucking forgot they were chains and not ropes.
And so, what is that like? Because I don't think you've ever wrestled in chains before.
It's interesting. It's another dynamic that I can just kind of be like, okay, what can I do here? Like, how can I not use these chains, or how can I use these chains? Like, it's a really on the fly situation.
And then this match was insane. If we talk about what Dom Gurnini was, this was the exact opposite. Where this was a monster, ultra chaotic. You guys were wrestling all over the place in this entire thing. I remember Larry Legend probably almost gave him a heart attack where he was like, everybody move out of the way, and you guys were wrestling in the back of the pawn shop and like all over the place, and then to and from and moving people, and people like were, I don't know if they weren't ready for it or whatnot. So what was that like? Because anything that could have gone wrong would have gone wrong, but nothing did go wrong. So obviously, very chaotic match.
No, that's exactly what I was going for. Is chaos like that? You're not gonna get this pretty fucking wrestling match. Like obviously, I'm not gonna back down, and he's a monster. So like that was the whole plan. Is just chaos. Like that's what I wanted.
And then I think what almost made Larry die, and I say this very, very politely and very respectfully to the Larry legend, is that one of the things that people in St. Louis are familiar with is throwing chairs into the ring. It is a
Yep.
common thing that has happened in St. Louis with you and a few other wrestlers, and it's like raining chairs. And that happened, and I don't know if people knew what to do. And Larry had to say, "Don't throw anything into the ring" to everybody. And so, what was that like? That entire situation, because that is not something that I think ICW was ready for. I think that's the first time that
Um.
happened in ICW, to be honest.
Uh. I think it's the second time. I think it happened with John Wayne there. Like I don't know what show, but someone had told me that was the second time. But basically, I was just an asshole and a bad influence. I went to thinking because I was just kind of in the moment.
But even still, to even do that though, because I don't think anybody was ready for it. I don't think the fans knew what happened, and I thought it was great. And then I just heard Larry, and I was just like dying with laughter hearing him, because I could imagine his reaction. Is like, oh my god, this is going to end so badly, because I don't think that I think the people in St. Louis know what to do with you, or if Warhorse called for it, or Nick Gage called for it, or Jeremy Wyatt called for it. People who obviously wrestle and know St. Louis, they sort of get what to do in that circumstance and understand how chaotic it is. But I don't think people were ready for that. And I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was a great moment for TV and a great
Yeah,
moment for
exactly.
streaming. I don't
Yeah.
know if they were ready for it as far as a promotion. And that's what made it so great in that realm. And I think it just added to the match. And I think looking backwards, I think it's going to age very well.
Yeah, I mean, if you can make a moment like that, then you know what you're doing, you know?
Yeah, and also to add it to the end, and then obviously Justin Kyle beat you and all that. But obviously, given that you're the veteran and Justin Kyle's new, and obviously Justin Kyle is a monster, I think it was great also as well as far as story goes, and also putting Justin Kyle over. I think that's something that is super cool, and also I feel like it legitimizes Justin Kyle in many ways. Because, I mean, you've done so much in wrestling at this point, and then you've held titles, and you've pretty much run the gauntlet, and you've done almost every single type of match as well.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's a pat on the shoulder. It's my job to help people get where they need to be, and like I'm that guy. I'm fine with that. Like I know that, and I don't have a problem with it at all.
And so what? And I thought it was great, and also I think that this was your first official entry and your first official match into ICW. Obviously,
Yep.
no holds barred. That I guess their volumes. This was obviously your second pit fighter. You did two pit fighter X's, and then obviously in the ring itself. And so obviously, I think you made a hell of an entrance into this promotion, this company. And then I'm very excited to see what happens next with you. And I really want you back in there because I just think there's so many people you can face.
Yeah, I'm totally stoked. I just actually got announced today for the Pit Fighter 16-man Tough tournament in Tampa.
And so, what number are you technically in that? Because how many more have to be announced? Because I know what is Nolan Edwards is announced, Shellack's in that. I would imagine Reed Bentley's in that, right?
Yep.
Who else is?
I was number 10, so there's 6 more after me.
I would imagine Akira's in that because I would like to see that match. You versus Akira, I think, could be a really cool match in that realm. I think you versus Reed Bentley would be good as well. A rematch,
No,
you and
totally.
Justin Kyle would be cool as well.
Yeah, there's a
So,
lot of awesome possibilities, and like I think like the tournament overall is gonna be fucking awesome. It'd be insane. So I'm looking forward to myself being there and being involved.
and also, I think the way it's set up, and you might know more than I do, but I think isn't it almost like 8 o'clock, and then they're doing it at like 11:59 as well.
Yeah, it's a tournament, so like you'll have the 8 o'clock show, and then the finals and everything will be at the midnight show.
Which I think it actually makes it mean something to this idea that, hey, we're doing it at a particular time. And now, because I know that you weren't on Fight Forever, but what was fun about Fight Forever is that the block from 12 o'clock to about 3 o'clock was cool when everybody was tweeting and everybody was engaging. And it felt like we were all on like the 5 years old staying up to like 2 in the morning club. And I know everybody
Yeah.
knows that feeling when like, oh man, I'm defining my parents. That's what it felt like. And I have a feeling that this tournament, especially at 12 o'clock, is going to have that feeling where we're all defining our parents and we're all in this exclusive club watching together and purposely staying up late doing it. And so I think that is something that this is going to have that effect as well. Seeing who's in there and all that stuff in the finals and all that fun stuff. So I'm very excited for that, especially because obviously we're leading up to WrestleMania week, which is going to be cool and it's going to be interesting, and what they're doing this year as well. So obviously that's something that I'm stoked for to see you in that, and then
Yeah, totally.
obviously I think you're going to be on at least one more show as well. That week.
Yeah, I'm also. Yeah, I got a couple more that haven't been announced yet.
And obviously this is on IWTV. I think it's $10.
Yep.
For a month. Also, I think it's $100 still for the year. I can't make any guarantees. I don't get a commission. I should because I promote it like crazy for free. So obviously, when IWTV sees this, if you would like to give me a commission for my hard work here, I'd greatly appreciate it. Or a free subscription would work just the same. I will happily take that as well. Or a shirt or a IWTV belt for my little action figure would be greatly appreciated as well. But anyhow, I digress. So even going just away from this, and obviously I can't wait to see what you do next because I'm stoked for what you're going to be doing in ICW. I'm stoked for St. Louis to come back. Obviously, a bunch of other promotions are also happening, and obviously things are now starting to get back to normal. And so, talking about COVID, obviously ICW has made decisions to move to Florida for a bunch of shows. I think most of Mania weekend is taking place in Florida, correct? Or is it taking place all over?
No, everything that I'm involved in is going to be in Florida, like right there in Tampa area. And then like the last ICW Goodbye to the Pawn Shop volume, that's in Port Richey. That's behind the pawn shop. So like it's all in that area.
And so obviously I think Florida is a much more friendly COVID state at the moment. For whatever reason that is, we don't have to get into that at the moment, but I'm very excited for a bunch of that stuff, and obviously for those Mania is going to be interesting. But to even talk about COVID, so obviously different parts of the country have been affected, different areas have been affected. COVID has actually slowly spread out all throughout 2020, where the Midwest was hit at a later date than the East Coast was and the West Coast was. Obviously, for those who don't know, and I know it's not wrestling related, but I think it's an indicator, San Diego Comic-Con was canceled, and I know that you're a Batman fan, that you're a comic fan, and so I am curious what your entire take on COVID is, and in particular with the entire entertainment world, and more specifically with wrestling, because where are we going? Because you're more on the inside, obviously with St. Louis, and we don't have to dive too much into the details of St. Louis and all, but obviously I'm a fan who's a podcaster who speaks to a lot of wrestlers. But how have you been affected with all of it, and where do you see it all going? Because it is a bit complicated, and things are tricky with COVID and everything that's sort of changing daily with it as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a thing. I mean, I got COVID in October, so like I had it, and like I got it from a show. So I mean, like it's a thing. Like I don't get why people don't think it's a thing. It's real, and like I was very lucky.
So to talk about where you got it, I don't want to blast the show, but obviously I'm gonna take a leap of faith and correct me if I'm wrong. You probably were practicing safe practices at that show, and that show may or may not have been.
Yeah.
But even still,
no, they were, and like that's the thing. Like everybody was doing things safe. It's just one of those weird things that like you get it or you don't get it. Like out of a room, a locker room of people, I'm the one person that got it. Why not just anybody else? Like it's weird. There's no rhyme or reason to it. And I get tested.
Yeah. What were you saying?
Like I get tested before and after shows, and like any show I work usually, included like everything that is going down in Florida, like IWTV, like you're asked to get a COVID test, and obviously if you're negative, you're more than welcome to show up to your work, but positive, stay home. Like I mean, just because people aren't talking about these things still anymore on social media, like any place that I work for is still doing these things.
So to even talk about this, because one of the things that happened on Twitter, and I think it happened mid 2020, late 2020, a bunch of people were shitting on certain shows for oh man, a bunch of wrestlers just got COVID out of this, or some wrestler was being irresponsible. And I don't know if that was the whole story with it, because from my understanding, I know that you had COVID, that you acted responsibly, and look, you could pick it up anywhere, or great, maybe somebody, forged their test for all you know. Maybe, something happened. Maybe it just was one of those freak things. And it's tricky because you said you got it, but did anybody else get it from that show that you know of? Because somebody could be asymptomatic, or they could have had it 2 weeks ago, and maybe they showed up on day 13 and not on day 14. And so it's super tricky where it is that thing where it's just like, or maybe somebody was feeling fine and they didn't know they had it, because it isn't asymptomatic with a lot of people. So obviously,
Yeah, absolutely.
so so so
There's
so
no rhyme or reason. It happened.
and I know that the like ring crews are disinfecting things, and that everybody's wearing masks, and everything in between, and that I would imagine that even with fans, and I know there were some fans at Pit Fighter and ICW Volume 10. I would imagine there was like no meet and greet type of stuff afterwards or anything like that, and it was kind of like all that. I know people were segregated and separated and branched out a little bit. So obviously a bunch of stuff has been taken, but even still, anything could happen with that. So
Exactly.
where do you think it's all going? Because obviously, I don't think it's far from over. And let's say that there's also going to be a percentage that don't get vaccinated. And even with this vaccination, there's going to be new strains that come out. And I mean, my parents are older, and my mom just got her first shot a week ago, and my dad just got his first shot a week ago. And I mean, I'm 28. It's going to be a while before I'm eligible to get my shots. I mean, we're talking 3 months from
Yeah.
now.
I
So
mean,
it's
the
complicated.
like to me, like for me, like I don't think we're in the clear at all by any means. I think like we go through ups and downs. Like right now, I feel we're in a lull. Like, but I think we'll have another spike in cases will go up probably here soon. And I'm not blaming anybody because obviously I'm out and about. I'm doing my job, and I know some people might not appreciate that. But it's my decision. I'm a grown up, and like I know the risk I'm taking by leaving my house or doing things. I understand.
I'm going to
So like,
challenge you on that, though, and I'm going to challenge you, I think, in your favor a little bit. Where, look, people, and there's been people that I'm friends with who are cosplayers, and I hate to pick on them, but I think it gets the point across the best. Where they're like, "Stay home, everybody. Why should they be running a Comic Con? I know it's a little bit different." Well, here's the problem: is that there are people who need to make money to feed their family. It's like, who are you to tell me that I can't work? And I understand the argument. Well, stay home, you could save a life. But if I can't keep my lights on or my mortgage on, and I'm willing to take that risk, it becomes super tricky. I think that to some degree, and I know how it sounds, and I know I might get shellacked for a little bit, but you're an adult, you can make an informed decision, and just because you're doing fine or I'm doing fine, it's a little bit weird when LeBron James, who makes millions of dollars a year, tells you that you can't do something when you don't make millions of dollars a year, and that you don't
yeah,
have $1 million in the bank. And you're an informed adult. You can say, "Look, I'm willing to take this risk, and I understand that it goes X." And look, anybody who doesn't feel comfortable doesn't have to leave their house.
absolutely. That's it. Make your own decision.
And look, and so this is how I view it: is that you should practice safety. Wearing a mask if you're leaving your own house is not imposing, but at the same time, I don't think that it's been very negative and stigmatized, and a bunch of these cosplayers who legitimately pull all their money off of Patreon are the ones saying some of this stuff. And I just think and I hate to pick it, and they're not the only ones who are saying it, but it's the perfect example. They make this post every single week, and I'm like saying, but what if I am legitimately have $1,000 in my bank account and I can't pay my mortgage? And if I go outside to my job, you're going to yell at me for trying to pay my mortgage. And obviously, your job
Yeah,
is to be a wrestler. Who are you to tell
double-edged
me?
sword, man.
It's so just and so even going off of that, I mean, I agree. Well, I think it's going to go back up when people go back out. I think that the vaccination position, I think I'm the earliest I'm going to be able to get vaccinated is June or July or August, because it is taking a long time. My mom's
Yeah,
vaccination took 20 minutes for her first shot, and I don't think they're going to be bringing in people like me. I'm 28, until my mom gets her second shot plus 3 months, and so she's going to get her second shot, I think, like in April. So obviously, it is super complicated, and it's going to take a while. And how many shots can you do in a day? So obviously, and then new strains are going to come out, and then in the fall, it's going to be right back. And I don't think I have a feeling with this virus, it's not a one and done vaccination. I think it's going to be like the flu.
Yeah,
So,
I mean that's the thing. It changes as the day goes along. Like it changes every day. Like that's the thing.
and so, I mean, what do you think Mania Week is going to look like? Because I don't know if fans are going to be permitted. I don't know if it's going to be limited attendance. I know that Blitzkrieg, in Connecticut, Massachusetts, they're running a show on May 7th, with 100 people there. So it's a very limited number in a big sort of venue. So it's going to be a cool show to that degree. But obviously, that's something
Yeah.
that is going to happen. So where do you think all that's going to go? And is also, is most of this inside or outside, if you know?
I think there's a little bit of everything when it comes to inside and outside down in Tampa. And like, I think WrestleMania tickets go on sale next week, so like, there's going to be limited capacity, which I think we're just kind of just dipping our feet in the water to see like what we can and can't do and like how it's going to work. Like, I think everybody's kind of interested just to see how that whole week plays, me included. Like we'll just see. But I don't think we're at full capacity or back to anything normal until maybe fall, if not later.
Yeah, I use San Diego Comic Con as the barometer, where and that's an extreme case because San Diego does over 100,000 people, and I think it's the
Yeah.
closest measure to WrestleMania. In many ways, I think that is a fair comparison. And the indies
Yeah.
are a little bit different, but like a max indie event, you know, it can hold a lot of people as well. But obviously, when they cancel San Diego Comic Con, that should be an indicator of where we're going with things. And I understand that watching a sporting entertainment event is a little bit different because you're not necessarily touching people. At a Comic Con, you're touching everything. So obviously, it's a
Yeah.
little bit different. But I think it gets to the point across where it's going to be a very, very slow return to a
Yeah.
lot of this
It's
stuff.
like I said earlier, it's just a waiting game, a big fucking waiting game.
And then my follow up to all this is that obviously, fan interaction is going to be very limited, if at all, for a while. And so that I'm also curious about how you feel about all of that, because a lot of people have a different, view on that, where some people are saying, it's all good, I enjoy, selling merch, but now I don't necessarily have to deal with that, or it's not really a possibility, or that we're going to go into more credit and more, here, Venmo me what you need, and we're not going to do anything, or it's going to be all cashless, or maybe some people are going to be like, hey, I'm cool taking your cash for my shirt, here's how it works, or things might be pre-packed. So where do you think that's going to go? Because people want merch and people want
For
t-shirts.
me personally, like I'm just gonna keep on selling stuff online like that. Right now, that's the easiest and like the safest if you think about it. I mean, like there's no interaction unless someone asks you in person about it, but like it's all can be done on social media.
And even going off of that, I mean, how much more important is social media now? I mean, my brand, partially because of you, and you started this, as I stated in the beginning, is my brand has legitimately 10x'd itself in the last almost a year. The 25th, so 15 days from today, has legitimately 10x'd itself in a year. And the connections and my reach and all that stuff has legitimately grown by 10x. So how do you feel that now social media is more important? I feel like every wrestler now understands how important social media is. Some are better at it than others. People understand that, tweeting on Twitter is ultra important now. Being on Twitter, being on Instagram, being on Facebook, being active, on all of the social media
Yeah.
platforms matters. So how do you feel that that's going to change wrestling? Because I think that is a game changer now in many ways.
It kind of already has. We can already see over the last 3 or 4 years how much it's already changed wrestling. It's really evolved things, and there's some negative factors into it, but we don't got to cover those. But like at the end of the day, like you can help brand yourself, and that's very important. It's like you have an option to be on weekly TV/social media every day, and if you're smart about what time you post something or what you post, you're going to get people to see it in their news feed because most people eat breakfast. Most people have a lunch break around noon. And then, like, the evening hours, if there's no wrestling going on or live wrestling, is a good time because people are just sitting around at the house, going through their fucking timeline.
Yeah, and I think to address the negative, and I know that we spoke about this I think privately, but I think it's a really good point. I think some people forget that it's called professional wrestling. It's not called
Yeah.
let's all high school wrestling. I think that is the biggest negative of social media, where things that shouldn't come out on Twitter, and things that when two people have a legitimate issue. And that comes out. And for instance, let's say somebody didn't get paid at a show, that should not be handled on Twitter. That is not
No, just
professional.
DM.
You would not put your boss on, if you work in a marketing company and your boss forgot your paycheck, you would not put it out on Twitter unless your boss was somebody extremely prominent and it was a bigger issue than just that. But for the most part, you would handle it privately behind closed doors. And I think that's something that's one of the biggest negatives and one of the biggest mistakes wrestlers, both new and old, make, is that if you are not having an issue that is beyond, storyline, or beyond, you just being a normal person and tweeting about something, and it's actually a legitimate issue, probably shouldn't tweet about it.
No, absolutely. I mean, professional wrestling, like, just go to the person directly.
I think that's one of the biggest things, and I think people forget that it is called professional wrestling. It is not called anything but that. You have to act as a professional because you have a skill set and there's an expectation. And then the other negative that I have with people is that the way I view it, and maybe my standard, and you could call me out on it, is if you wrestle in the ring and then you're hanging outside selling merch, you are still on your job. You are not out of your job until you are in your car going home or in the parking lot. If you're at a bar at an after party, it's a little bit different, where it might be eased out a little bit. And everybody's going to a bar for a drink and a bunch of fans are with wrestlers hanging out. It's a little bit different. But even still, I think that, if it's in a gym and people are selling merch and you're hanging out, you're still on the job. And I've had an issue with a particular wrestler who was, in my view, still on the job and acted like an asshole, and acted not responsible to that effect. So obviously that's just my standard, and you can disagree. So that's the other thing about professionalism. But I digress right there. Beyond that, we don't need to get too much into the negatives. Beyond that, because we could be here for the next 3 hours easily.
Yeah. Why put all your time into something toxic? Who cares? Life goes on.
And so obviously, we just covered a bunch of stuff. Obviously, again, we just talk on the show. I'll leave everybody in the pit. Hopefully, I'll get healthy and I will happily take on Brandon Kirk. I will avenge Danny. Go team, go. It'll be a great match. I really want to be suplexed by Casey. It's like on my bucket list. Casey could tell through a door too. Oh, it'd be awesome. It'd be awesome. Door like door on fire too. Oh, it'd be great. Be like on my bucket list. And then I'll put that on my senatorial campaign right there. So this is how we handle Washington, and I'll get a broom too, cleaning it up. But anyhow, I digress right there. So obviously, I would like to give you an opportunity to promote yourself. Obviously, I know you got merch down with people down in Florida, a lot of cool gear coming out. Vet violence, I think, is still in effect. I don't know if you have a Catterday shirt yet, but if you don't, I might know somebody who might make you one. And I know you got a bunch of other cool merch as well as where can people find you on Twitter, Facebook? Do you have Instagram? I don't know if you do, but obviously,
I had an Instagram. My Instagram is all weird, messed up, so I don't even use it anymore.
But where can people find your merch? Where can people find you on Twitter? Where can people find your Facebook? And obviously, when are you wrestling? Because I think we tackled that, but I do want to remind a bunch of people of all of that.
If you want to find me on Twitter, it's at Stiff Rope with Ginger. Facebook's just Gary Jay, and then if you want to buy any kind of cool merchandise, fullygimmick.com. They're my merch people. They're in Florida. They're awesome. Luna and Zach, thumbs up for you guys. They actually right now, I think, like, I'm pushing the unsigned and don't care shirt I have with Aaron Williams. It's like half a cat face and his face, so like that's our thing. And then upcoming events. Where am I? I'm in North Carolina March 20th for America Wrestling Lucha, I believe. I'm tagging with Aaron there. And then at the end of the month, I'm at 01 USA March 27th. And then I believe I have a week off, and then I'm in Tampa for all the IWTV festivities.
And that is the 8th, the 9th, the 10th, or is it the 7th, 8th, and 9th?
I am there the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th, and I think leaving that Saturday night or Sunday. I don't know. It changes weekly.
It's 3 days, 12 shows is my point that I'm trying to get across. A bunch of wrestlers are going to be there. A bunch of matches are going to happen. Some people that obviously, and I'm going to drop it where it's, I'm Team IWTV. There is Team GCW. Obviously, you don't have to pick a team. You could watch a little bit of both, but obviously IWTV, it's $10 a month, and pretty much you could watch 12 shows for $10. And I'm pushing that hard because I think that there's a bunch of cool stuff. A lot of ICW. There's some, St. Louis stuff going on. I think that there's some showcase stuff. I think obviously there's going to be some cool stuff with New South. I think it's doing some cool stuff down there as well. So obviously beyond a lot of cool stuff's going on, and it's going to be a really cool, 12 days, or 12 shows, 3 days of wrestling. I'm going to say it this way. You probably, if you've never seen wrestling before, or you're not familiar with the indies, you might discover some of your favorite new wrestlers out there. And there might be some people who might wind up going to WWE or AEW someday. So obviously pay attention because there's a lot of really good talent going on. So on that note, and I've been saying it with everybody, and I think you probably heard me say it at least 3 times, if not 4, got to support indie. Obviously, you have to support people by buying their merch and spending money on them. So buy a shirt, buy an 8x10, buy whatever they got going on. It is super important. Also, if you buy their merch, take a picture of yourself wearing it and actually tweet it at the wrestler. So if you actually buy a shirt from Gary at Fully Gimmick, take a picture of you wearing it in a mirror and tweet it at Gary. It goes a long way. It also shows support. It's also a really cool thing to do. And it means a lot, both because it's shareable and it's super cool to that front, as well as it affects the Twitter algorithm, and it also shows that you care. It makes people feel really good too. So definitely do that. And if you're in a situation where money is tight, and let's be realistic here, obviously scrape together $10 and get IWTV in April. Do it on April 1st. You won't be disappointed, I promise you. Or better yet, you probably can find a promo code on a bunch of these wrestlers' stuff and watch it and tweet about it. And obviously, tweet about wrestling, super helpful, super important. You never know who's watching. You never know who's checking it out. Goes a long way. Follow wrestlers on Twitter. Follow them on Facebook. Obviously, follow Gary J. It's Stiff Robo Ginger. If you got a Twitter account and you're not following Gary, please go do that. It does make a difference. Tweet at Gary. Go bother Gary. Gary J loves Twitter. He does like and retweet a bunch of posts all the time. Might take him a day. Might take you a day. But he does do that a lot. So I'm letting you know that if you don't see it in a day or see it in an hour, might be a day late. So keep that in mind. But it does get retweeted. A bunch of stuff does. So that's something that's cool. It makes me feel good when wrestlers retweet my stuff, especially when I tweet it at them. So that's something that you should do, because that does go a long way. And so on that note, I'm going to give you the final word.
My final word is I just want to say, kind of run off that, is if anybody's bought my merch ever, or came to me at a show and says I appreciate your work, or you're awesome, or you're my favorite, that means a lot to me. Like, plain and simple. Thank you.
And I couldn't have said that any better myself.